Allie from the Sassy Apple, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today for video 2 in my back to school video series all about planning the most amazing first week ever. Today's video is all about your first 3 reading lessons of the school year. As a reminder, don't forget to download the free lesson planning guide. The link is down below. All of the resources and freebies that I am discussing throughout this video are included in the planning guide. Let's get started. When I am thinking about my content areas and how I want to introduce them, I ask myself this main question: what message do you want to communicate? What are you trying to tell your students that's important, that you value when it comes to reading in your classroom? Now, obviously, you can't just tell them because they're 7, 8 years old. You have to show them. For me, reading is one of the top priorities in our classroom. I want reading to be enjoyed. So that is what I want to communicate to my students. I don't want them to feel like having to read is a burden or too much work, because they will not become lifelong readers who check out books from the library as a high schooler, as an adult, to read for pleasure. If we don't start at the very beginning of their reading lives, reading to them for fun and letting them read for fun. So this starts on day 1 when we start implementing our independent reading routines. And you might think, wow, you're going to have them read by themselves on the first day of school? Absolutely. Their book boxes will have some books in them. So we're not going to have to go through all of the procedures of choosing books. They're not even labeled yet. That's okay. I just want them to have, 5 or 6 books. We're going to sit down. It might only last for 5 minutes. You kind of gauge and see how much stamina they have to begin with. Keep it pretty light on day 1 and just find that time in the day where they can sit down, relax, and enjoy a book. I find if we do this in the afternoon, especially right after lunch and recess, it's a really great time where they're kind of worn out and they need some time to just relax and regroup. So that is when I like to plan my independent reading time for. Obviously, this will depend on your schedule, but if you can put it in the afternoon, that's what I would suggest. I would also suggest that you do it whole group. I used to do independent reading as a center. It did not work well because students were distracted. When we do it as a whole group, I myself can even sit down with a book and model what it looks like to be that still, calm, reading the whole time reader. I'm going to make sure that whatever time I do choose in the day, that we keep it consistent. It's something that's predictable, and it's something that we prioritize. It's easy to let independent reading fall off the schedule when other things come up, but I try to keep that time as sacred as possible. Like I said, I do it after lunch and recess, and they come straight in, they grab their book boxes, and they start reading. Not on day 1, obviously, but by day 20, day 25, they have been trained to do this where I don't even have to direct them to it. They know exactly what to do. And I'll tell you, it cuts way down on the recess drama or the after recess drama where they want to come in and tell you a million stories. It gives you time to kind of get things settled or to even pull students one-on-one to read. That's a really great opportunity as well. So those are my suggestions for getting started on day 1. If that feels overwhelming, I want you to think of it like this. You might have students in your class that have not picked up a book all summer. And that is a sad fact, but it's a fact. And we want to get books in their hands right away. So after we've read some books, they've read books on their own, I put together this book recommendation chart. So they get to grab a Post-it and share the name of a book that they read that they would recommend someone else to read. And then I let them pull a Post-it to read others' recommendations. So we do a little book sharing. I also model this, how to choose which book in my book box that I want to recommend, how I use, the book cover to write down the title, and maybe even add some stars there. We'll do, 3 out of 5 stars or 4 out of 5 stars. So this is just a little activity we do that first week, and this anchor chart freebie is available in the link below. So my next message I want to communicate is that we need to be reading without distraction. So in order to be able to enjoy reading, we have to do it where we're focused on our books the whole time. We start taking a look at where in the room is a good spot for us to sit. We call them our SMART spots. And of course, SMART has to be an acronym and stand for something. So a SMART spot is safe. There are minimal movement. Your attention is on books. You can relax, and no talking. So those are the 5 things that we look for, and I give them these little, they're not Post-its, but just little note cards, and they go around the room, and they can either draw or write where some spots are good for them to sit. So this would be a great time to let them know where they cannot sit and discuss where they can find 3 spots. And I do 3 spots because obviously they're not going to want to sit in the same spot every single day for the entire year. And sometimes someone's in their spot, so they need to have some backup spots to go to. And we just keep this little note card in our book box as a reminder. And then it's a great thing to reference back to if you see a student who is distracted, who is talking. You can pull them over and say, well, let's take a look at what choices you picked as your SMART spots. Maybe this is not one of the SMART ones, and maybe you could add staying at their desk as one of them, which is not as much fun as maybe sitting in the classroom library, but that's a logical consequence for not picking a spot that is free of distractions. So they're a great classroom management tool and help your students with taking that accountability and feeling responsible for choosing where they sit in the room. My next message I want to relay to my students is that books are to be discussed. We are going to be talking about books that we've read, books they've read independently, sharing with each other. So we need to have some routines in place for how we are going to share and discuss books. Turn and talk is obviously a very popular strategy. And the first time I used this in my classroom, I said, all right, turn to the person next to you and talk. And it was a mess. People didn't have anyone to talk to. People talked, and then the other person didn't have enough time to talk. So I realized this needs to be taught. We need to establish some expectations for it. And I need to use some strategies to manage it a little bit better. So I came up with these cards, and it's funny, now that I'm looking at them, I thought of an even better idea, but you can hand them out, and there are matching letters, so 2 A's and 2 B's and 2 C's, and they find their partner, and that will be their turn and talk partner. There are some that have 3 of each letter, so that if you have an uneven amount of students, you can handle that situation. But I think if you print these out on 2 different colors, so you have a sheet that is blue and a sheet that's red, then you can say when they match up, the blues can talk first this time, or the reds can talk first this time. So that would be a great way to establish who will speak first. And you need to emphasize less of the talking and more of the listening sometimes. So one trick that I use to get them to think about what their partner's saying is when they share out, I don't have them share what they shared. I have them share what their partner said. So I'll ask, my A group, okay, so Susie, what did Billy tell you? So that really focuses in on that they need to be a good listener if they want to share out, because you have those kids that just want to share no matter what, and they likely want to share what they said, not what their partner said. But if you put in that little trick to have them listen, then they will pay more attention next time for sure. We also discussed text connections. Now, this is a lot for the first week of school, but I do go through my hand movements for the 3 types of text connections. So We have text to self. We have text to text. And then we have text to world. So we will not get into text to text and text to world all in the first week of school, but kids can definitely do text to self because that's the majority of their connections. So I teach them the hand movements about their text connections, and you will see they quickly start utilizing them when they have those connections to the book. So I get that started on day one because it's something we discuss all year long. You can grab these Turn and Talk cards down below. There is a link to this freebie. All right, so that wraps up my first 3 reading lessons. We had reading for fun and sharing books that we've read through our recommendations anchor chart. We had finding smart spots around the classroom and procedures for independent reading. And then finally, we had making text connections and sharing about what we read and discussing through Turn and Talk. So those are the first 3 days of my reading lessons. You can grab the freebies below. And our next video is going to be about the first 3 math lessons. So thank you for joining me and planning the most amazing first week ever.